Just waiting for a couple of seconds. Hello everyone, and welcome to the IFA National branch meeting for today, which is with our friends from Vantage Fee Protection. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes just to allow everybody to join the meeting. I'm pleased to say that we have over 240 registrations for today, so it shows how I think we're all engaging in the technology of Zoom and obviously online CPD meetings, which is great. And as we've said before, it's about the far-reaching to the membership as a whole. Not to say that once we are back to some normality, of course, that's you know, those face-to-face meetings are quite as important as well. And I think from an institute point of view, you know, there'll be a mixture going forward. But welcome everybody to today's meeting. I'm Ian Hornsey. Obviously, I'm IFA IFA Director and Chair of the Members Advisory Committee, as well as being the Chair of the Essex branch. Obviously, as with all online meetings, you do have to bear with us if there's any technical issues. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there will not be any today. But I must admit, I was doing a meeting this morning at 7 AM with Australia, with our friends with the IPA, and unfortunately, I think half of us couldn't connect. So these things do happen. As with all the online meetings, especially the national branch ones, the Q&A should show at the bottom of your screen. I've spoken to our speakers today, John and Anne, and if you want to ask them some questions as they go along, I will obviously keep an eye on those and interact and ask them to answer them for you. Today's webinar is being recorded, and obviously so that is available to members if they cannot join us today. But I'm very pleased to welcome to our today's speakers, Anne Grundy and John O'Donnell from Vantage Fee Protect. I think some of you may know both speakers. Anne has kindly spoken at the Essex branch in the past, haven't you, Anne?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And John, I think you've been spoken recently to Northern Ireland and Scotland.
That's right.
And obviously, Vantage Fee Protect is a national strategic partner with the Institute, and have spoken at many of the branch meetings. But as you'll see, Anne started her working life 9 years in practice, having worked in both large and small practices. And obviously recently she joined Vantage as their senior technical claims consultant. So as many of you know, I'm in practice, and obviously I use Vantage ourselves for fee protection. So I know Anne quite well, and she deals with our claims, and I'm sure she'll mention that later today. John started his career in the financial sector 20 years ago, a large multinational insurance company, apparently, didn't you, John?
I did, yeah.
Working in underwriting and risk before moving into new business teams. After a spell with provisional accountancy practices and financial advisors, John took up a role with a financial services firm in Gibraltar. Very nice, John. So working closely with the insurance sector across the EU and the USA. You moved back to the UK to take up a position with Vantage 2 years ago in the business development role. And I think you're mainly in the north, aren't you, John?
I am. So north of England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. But I do drift into other areas at times as well.
But as you will see from the screen, obviously he speaks to many accountancy practices of all sizes. And I think that will come over today about obviously what Vantage is all about and the role they play in helping us as accountants in practice. So just to keep you updated with upcoming events, obviously here is the list, and I'm sure you would all refer to the website anyway. And I know lots of members are being involved in the events that we're putting on online. I know last week the Wellbeing series started. I've heard some great feedback on that, and part 2 is of course on Thursday. Obviously, we're trying to cover all the various different areas, and I know the tax series again has been very well supported and hopefully is beneficial, not just from a CPD earning point of view, but to give you real good quality information. And the next branch, national branch meeting on the 12th of May is actually to do with making tax digital, which I'm sure a lot of us will be quite interested with. So please do keep up to date with the various events, and also don't forget the local branch surgeries in your area. Please support them because it's quite important. And as you know, your local ambassadors there to help as well. And just going on to that, just reminding people of their CPD requirements. I know I think I've gone well over my requirements this year, and probably many of us have because it is easier to do online CPD. But also just remind of the various information we can supply as an institute, from the COVID-19 resource page on our website. The member support group continues to operate. Again, that is supported by mainly the ambassadors around the country. Details of the contact details are online. So again, if any of you need to speak to one of us, please do feel it's what we're here for. It's all about helping each other. We're all members. We all probably come across the same sort of problems. And again, although we're coming out of COVID, I still think from a client point of view, especially, that there are other issues coming to light now that may need some discussion. And although I've got staff here to talk to, I know a lot of people are on their own in practice, and sometimes you just need that ear really to talk things through. Membership renewals, again, obviously it's all about making sure you've done everything you should have done, that you've completed, you've paid. Remembering that obviously you need to do not just pay it, you need to complete your declarations, especially if obviously your personal membership, but also the firm renewal as well. I know lots of members have done that already. Unfortunately, every year we do get a few that still haven't quite achieved 100%. And of course, as an institute, it's all about raising standards, and we need to make sure that our members do what they need to do, really. So, but I think that's enough from me. I'd like to sort of move on to our speakers today. So I'm going to hand over to John and Anne, and so I'll keep an eye on the Q&A, and I'll interact as and when there's a question come through. Guys, over to you.
Thanks, Ian. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I've got some slides which I'll be going through, and I'll be happy to share these afterwards with anybody who would like them. Ian's got my details, and so if you reach out to Ian from my email address, I'll be able to send these over to you if it would be of interest. So first of all, as Ian said, I'm John O'Donnell, work at Vantage Fee Protect for a couple of years now, up and down the country talking to accountancy practices of all different shapes and sizes, and trying to help with their fee protection need. And I'm joined by Anne Grundy, who is our senior claims guru, and will be able to answer any questions and go through a few case studies on the claim side as well. So hopefully we'll be able to give you a full rounded picture of fee protection and answer any questions that you might have. So I will move on. If I can get the if I can get this to work. There we go. So to start with, I think the picture that's painted here is that HMRC have year on year been increasing their activity. And although last year we saw a real drop off and things basically fall off a cliff, and I think we all know the reasons for that, this trend is something which is likely to continue. And this year, and this is something which Anne will touch on in terms of claims later on as well, we're already seeing that starting to ramp up again to catch up on what they've missed out on over the last 12 months or so because of COVID in particular. I think we're expecting to see almost 2 years of inquiries come through in the next 12 months as they try to make up as much of the money that's been paid out as possible, as well as catching up on the inquiries which have been put to one side or maybe not started that would have been started last year. So this sets the scene really for where we come in and what I'll be talking about and what we'll be talking about moving forward, which is that this is really the area that we're looking to come in and try to protect your fees as HMRC get to work. So I think to start with, I've got a couple of questions lined up which you can click the button and get involved in. So the first thing that I would ask is, of everyone watching today, who currently has a fee protection product in place? I'm sure most of you have come across fee protection in one form or another, and whether that's via your the institution or there's all sorts of people who promote this product. But it's always surprising to me how many people know about it, but then have not necessarily dipped their toe and moved forward. So I can see the numbers on the screen are quite interesting at the moment to me. We're looking at about 75% of the participants here haven't got fee protection in place, which, again, as I say, it always surprises me. But I suppose from the inside of the industry, it's something that I'm coming across all the time, and I speak to people who are actively either looking for it or looking to change providers. So when I see that 75% of people here aren't protected, especially when we're looking at a significant increase in HMRC activity coming up, I think the message at this point would be, now's the time to be looking for it, whether it's with Vantage, and I'd love everybody to come to Vantage if they wanted to, or if they could, but even if it's not with Vantage, I think now is the time to certainly be finding out more about fee protection, finding out how it can protect you, which is something we'll move on to, and what else you can get out of it, because there is more to it than just protecting your position when it comes to fees regarding inquiries. So I'll move on to the next slide now, if I can. Okay, so this is a little bit about us as Vantage, and as with a lot of the providers in the market, there's been name changes and there's been changes in staff, and people at the top and the bottom of the companies have come and gone. But with Vantage, I think the message that we would look to get across is that the pedigree is there and has been there for decades now. As you can see from this slide, we've been in the market since the 80s. There have been changes, there have been changes in names, but every year we've moved on and we've looked at better ways to protect firms and accounting practices of all different sizes. So looking at this slide, you know, we're coming up to 1,500 clients. It's probably a little bit above 1,500 now, to be honest. And of those, we've got sole practitioners, people who work out of their kitchen, not just during lockdown for COVID, but general people working from home. We've got multi-partner practices, and we've got some of the largest firms in the country on the books as well. And we're able to give a service to all of those and able to give cover for their clients and the additional services to their clients that match the needs of each practice. And so when you're looking at somebody like Smith & Williamson or Hacker Young, Anderson Brown in Scotland, these are big practices with high expectations. But because of the staff we have in place and the experts that we have, and I will introduce one shortly in Anne Grundy, we can service these clients and give them the product and the support that they need to protect their clients, protect their fee position, and also add a little bit of added value as well, which is handy at times, especially in the current market when it's always, clients are always looking for that bit extra and a bit more when they're paying for it. They want to get their money's worth. So the final part on that slide as well, I think, is important, and that's just to emphasize that we're backed by gold standard underwriters. And so when it comes to paying claims, there's no issue. I've never come across a situation where there's been any particular issue other than a claim not falling within the terms of the policy. So again, that's something that Anne can move on to when we talk about the claims. But that's us in a nutshell. You know, we've been around for a while and we know what we're doing. Hopefully some of our clients will back that up as well. So the next slide, if I can move on to it, I don't know. Right, so I'm having a little issue here. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay, so fee protection again. When I look at the numbers previously of who's taken fee protection and who hasn't, 75% of the people here haven't got it, but I would imagine that most people have heard about it. Most people in the industry will have come across it in one form or another. And so I'll go into a bit of detail about what it is and what it does. Fee protection primarily is an insurance product that protects your fees should your clients be engaged in an inquiry and you have to manage that inquiry for them. So it would meet your cost in handling a review inquiry on behalf of your client. It makes sure that you're paid for the time you spend on these matters. And the way we work it is we would have an hourly charge out rate for you, and then we would work with you to pay for your time managing these inquiries. Now, I know not everybody works on an hourly rate anymore. There's all sorts of ways of billing your clients, whether that's monthly direct debit or for particular work, whatever it might be. But the way we work is on an hourly rate. And so you know that you're protected and you're not going to be wasting your time. You're not going to be chasing your clients for money. There's plenty of other things to be worrying about. So that's what we're here for, is to protect your position. It also, as the final point on that slide says, is an opportunity to bring extra income into your practice. And different practices see this in different ways, but basically there are two ways to take this product out. The first one is what we call an all-client scheme, which basically does what it says on the tin. We look at your practice as a whole. We look at the risk across your practice in terms of your client base, inquiries that you've had over the last 3 years, and then we will rate that and give you a premium to cover the whole practice. And doing it that way, you can pay us by interest-free monthly direct debit, so you know exactly what your outgoings are. The other way to do it is what we call a client decide scheme, or an optional scheme, which is market to your clients. Either we can do that or the practice can do it themselves. A client might decide that they want it, and so they would pay for it and we would add them to the scheme. Doing it that way removes the risk to the practice of having to pay for this product when a client hasn't necessarily opted in. But what it does mean is that you carry the risk of carrying uninsured clients. And if one of those clients does have an inquiry during that year, if they're not on the scheme and they're not insured by us, we're not going to cover the cost of the fees in relation to that inquiry. So there's two ways to do it. Now, either way, we can market to your clients and promote this product to them. And they can pay for that in a way that means that there is an admin fee attached to it, which can go straight to your practice. If you run a non-regulated scheme, then you would pay us plus insurance premium tax, but your clients would be paying you for a service plus VAT. And so the difference between what we would need from you, which would be premium plus IPT, and then what you take from your client, can be an income generation for your practice. And if you're looking at a couple of hundred clients, maybe the per client rate, which does differ greatly depending on whether you go with the all client route or the client decide route, there might be a difference of say 20, 30, 50 pounds per client, which just goes directly to your practice. So as I say, a good income generator, as well as giving you that peace of mind that if you need to represent a client in any inquiry, your fees are covered as well, and there's going to be no issue. So moving on to the cover itself, we have, and we're proud of having, the most comprehensive cover in the market for fee protection. And there are an awful lot of things that are covered within the policy. If anybody wants the full policy wordings, I'd be happy to go over them with them and talk in more detail. But I think for the sake of this presentation, we'll look at the headlines, which are really that you have £100,000 worth of cover, no excesses and no inner limits on that, with the exception of a judicial review inquiry, which is covered to £10,000. But I've never come across a judicial review inquiry. I'm sure some of our clients have them. I'm sure Anne will have done, and she'll talk about that if necessary. COP 8 is covered to 10,000, and COP 9 is not covered because obviously there may be some illegality involved there. So we're not going to cover that. But there are an awful lot of things that are covered in the policy, and I think a lot of things which are awfully common, which are covered in the policy. And that goes from, as you can see on the slide, starting with record checks and inspections and interventions, through to inheritance tax. And when we're talking about inheritance tax, it also includes things like the inheritance tax trust 10-year returns, which aren't necessarily covered in other places. We've got child tax credit inquiries, we've got the high rate child benefit charge inquiries, student loan gift aid. There's an awful lot of things that are covered. And I think a couple of points that are important to some of our members: we're the only provider to cover the Scottish regime as standard. And so it gives an extra layer, an extra element of peace of mind for our Scottish clients, that whatever might come about in under that regime will be covered within our policy as well, to the same limits, with no exceptions apart from those highlighted in the policy. So as you can see on the slide, it's a fairly comprehensive scheme. I am happy to go through it all. It's not everybody's cup of tea, insurance, and so I won't bore everybody with the fine details at this point. It could be quite dry, but as I say, if anybody wants to pick my brain on a specific element that might be covered, or you know, the full landscape of the policy, just drop me an email or give me a call, and I'll be happy to go through anything with anybody. So moving on to the next, before we move on, I should say, to some case studies, I would just ask the next question, which is, has anybody been involved in an inquiry over the last 5 years, or have you had to manage an inquiry for your clients? Obviously, we see different elements, and quite often I'll speak to an accountant who might say, oh, I haven't had an inquiry for 10 years, you know, we don't expect any, we know what we're doing, there's no issue with it. And I appreciate that, you know, some people do avoid the HMRC investigations, and they don't see it so often, but it's amazing how many times you will see somebody say, I haven't had one for 10 years, and all of a sudden, like London buses, here they are, 3 in a row. Or you might have a group of companies and they see one, and then all of a sudden they want to look at everyone within that group. So it's interesting to see almost a 50-50 split on people who have and haven't been involved with an inquiry over the last 5 years. I think personally, and I'll pass over to Anne shortly, but I think personally that might change over the next couple of years. We might see a lot more people having to deal with these things as HMRC ramp up, but we'll see how that goes. And for now, when it comes to these case studies and talking about ways we can help in a bit more detail, I'll pass over to my colleague Anne Grundy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to present to you this afternoon. I have a little bit about myself. I have been in tax fee protection for the best part of 29 years. There isn't much that hasn't passed my desk that I can honestly say doesn't shock me. I learn something new every week, and no doubt Ian will confer with that. As I say, I look after Devonport's claims. I look mainly after all the large schemes that we have, plus the whole of the south of the UK. That doesn't mean to say I don't touch on people in the north, because we, being the technical claims consultant, I get to see all the difficult cases. There aren't always difficult cases. There are some very straightforward cases, but we see everything from, you know, from a student loan that hasn't been repaid for the tax on the student loan to, well, literally anything from COP8. It literally goes across the board. As John said earlier, this has been definitely a strange last 12 months. COVID hit, and literally the Inland Revenue pulled every senior person and the next level down and put them onto the COVID cases and to furlough, which I'm sure you've all had to get involved with in some shape, way or form. And literally all the inquiries that we had ongoing, and we can have anything up to 1,500, 2,000 claims running at any one point, all went on hold. It was literally, thanks very much, but we're on hold for us at the time being. they have now started to relook at the cases. So we're now getting an influx of, we spoke to you last April, and guess what? We're now still talking to you. They haven't gone away. They didn't suddenly stop overnight. Everything literally just got put on hold. Equally, we are seeing the start of the Inland Revenue ramping up, trying to get their fees back. You know, the payments that they've paid out millions of pounds for COVID, and they're going to try and get that back. There's only one way, unfortunately, and it's going to be via inquiries, which we have seen. They have started coming in. The job retention scheme inquiries started last October. We were all sat in the office going, oh, we won't see them until January, February time. Oh no, they started to come in, and once they started to come in, they flooded in. We have approximately about 250 of these cases ongoing, and they're still, every single day we get, or every single week we get at least another job retention scheme claim coming in. We've also got the Eat Out to Help Out coming through, and I've got some examples of letters that you will see for these types of inquiries. The Eat Out to Help Out, the letter, all the letters have been standard, and they are actually quite intensive as to the information that is required. But to go through some case studies that we've got, these are all actual cases that I have dealt with over the years. So it's that they are truly what you would expect. This is what comes through. So the case study that I've got in the first place is a barrister was targeted by the Inland Revenue. It was an aspect inquiry, and the inquiry concentrated on the barrister's income and the contract split between legal aid and private work. Now, this is going back a little bit because I know all barristers that it's all changed slightly, but it's a good one to go through. So as soon as the initial letter was received, we could agree that the work would be covered, and to set the client's mind at ease. Basically, they'd this particular practice had actually got an all client scheme, so they put the initial letter in, and we said yes, fill in the claim form, and off we went. So straight away they could ring their client up and say, you did really well paying for this for this premium, because your fees are now going to be protected. The result was that the inspector, the HMRC, agreed that the income returned was as it should be. So there was no amendment to the tax return, and there was no additional tax payable by the barrister. The barrister was really happy about this. He thought his accountants were absolutely fantastic, and even more so when he didn't get the bill for £2,500, which is what it cost the accountants to argue the case that it was actually there was no amendments due to the tax return. So and again, the length of the inquiry, it took 9 months. Everybody, we talk in hours. When we talk about putting in a claim, we talk about hours, and hours seems a little bit ridiculous, but actually you might say it's going to take 10 hours to deal with this, but those 10 hours can be stretched from 9 months to 1 month, rather, to 9 months, to actually 2-3 years. The longest case I had before I actually left the fee protection provider that I was with when the case started was actually 7.5 years, and it still wasn't finished after 7.5 years. The fees you would think that they would be astronomical. They actually weren't, because it took the revenue an inordinate amount of time to keep coming back and talking to the accountant. So these things are for peace of mind. The claims, I'm sure there are people. I have a poll. I have a poll. Has anybody had an inquiry where they have not taken all the fees? So have you struggled to recover the fees from a client after managing an inquiry? I can't see the. Maybe I'm being a bit.
Can you see it on your screen, Anne? So
no, I can't.
Okay.
Where am I looking?
It's about 60. It's going up a little bit. 63%, or it's 65 now, saying no, they've not struggled, but obviously the nearly 30% have.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, if I'm hopeful that those 65%, Ian, have fee protection. Okay, so or 73% have fee protection, and therefore they haven't struggled to get the fees from the client, and the actual ones that have struggled haven't got fee protection, because this is the whole point of having fee protection. It's the point of getting the information over to the revenue as quickly as possible, but having your fees protected. Because if you follow the rules, which is put a claim form in, get it accepted, incur the fees, we will quite happily pay those fees. And I've got an example, and it's one of Ian's cases, and I have actually
sorry, Anne, can I just interrupt just quickly to say to everyone that I know somebody raised their hand, but because there's so many people involved today, if you could send, if you would like to ask a question, if you could send it on the Q&A, then I will then obviously ask Anne or John the question. The Q&A should be at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to put the question in there. If not, by all means, put it in the chat box. Thank you. Sorry, Anne.
No, so as no doubt Ian will contest, because I spoke to him earlier, because we have a very, very interesting case, and it's one of Ian's as it happens. The gentleman, unfortunately, the taxpayer, is no longer with us, but the inquiry started into his tax return. Had he declared all his income? And Ian put the claim in, and we accepted the claim. Unfortunately, the gentleman's health deteriorated over quite a long period of time, but it just shows that the Inland Revenue inquiries aren't, they aren't fast. So unfortunately, this gentleman has passed away, and I have to say that Ian and I were like, well, hopefully it'll all go away, because it very rarely, the revenue very rarely extend it into the estate once somebody's passed away, because generally they're the only people that can answer the questions, and if they can't answer the questions because they're not here, generally it goes away. So Ian and I had a conversation. Yes, it was going to, hopefully everything was going to be closed down, and then it didn't. What the revenue have done is extended the inquiry into the estate, and actually had made some quite serious allegations as to what the gentleman had been doing while he was alive, which, dare I say, Ian knows that this is not the case, because Ian had to make a report, shall I say, following a disclosure that the client had made to him while he was alive. I have to tell you that Vantage take a very strong view. We are not just here to go, yes, the revenue are right all the time. Sometimes we have to say that. Sometimes we say there are no prospects. But in this case, Ian will testify, I absolutely was amazed that the revenue could do what they were doing. And I've given Ian my full backing, and the estate of the gentleman concerned has now no worries that they're going to get a large accountancy bill, or not so large as the case may be, because it isn't at the end of it yet, is it? So I say it may be
Correct.
A large accountancy bill because of the technicalities behind it, and I don't wish to go into that, because it's not that easy to describe what's going on. Ian may wish to do so if he wants to interject. I'm quite happy for him to do that, to give you a bit more background. But basically, Vantage are covering the fees, and we are backing Davenport's all the way to take this. And if it needs to go to tribunal, we will back him to tribunal. That's how seriously we take clients' cases where there is a requirement to do so.
I think if I can just interrupt that, you know, this is where I think for me that Vantage have been there for both me, my firm, and particularly the client originally, and then now his family, who obviously sort of knew that there was an inquiry going on, but obviously were left in a desperate situation of losing a family member, but the revenue's still taking a very, very harsh line with no grounds whatsoever. And I think, you know, we've discussed as members in the past, you know, our love and hate of HMRC, and, you know, they've all got a job to do, and it's all about making sure that everybody pays the correct amount of tax. Unfortunately, they do get it wrong sometimes. And from my point of view, you know, that's where not only does it give me comfort that because I have an all client scheme, that I can claim via Vantage for my fees and not put the pressure on the client. But it's not just that, it's also about the support that you get from the technical team at Vantage. And I'm sure John can come on to that a bit later, because I know, especially if you are a sole practitioner, it can be quite a lonely world, and you don't know all the answers and how to deal with, you know, replies to the revenue sometimes. And I think that's quite important, isn't it, Anne? So
it most certainly is. And the thing that we pride ourselves in at Vantage, and we are unique in this in the fee protection arena, is that the people that are at Vantage have all the technical people have exceedingly long years within fee protection and within practice. So the claims team have somewhere in the region of over 140 professional and fee protection years between them, because that's what we do. But we're also very personable, and every single accountant has their own technical claims handler, so you deal with the same person each time, which means that you build up a rapport with these people, and that you can, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and Ian will contest that, but I am very personable. I know all the people at Davenport's. I know them by name. They know me. They know that they can pick up the phone, and if they can't get hold of a technical person, or they need to speak to somebody technically, they'll pick up the phone and talk to me, because they know I'm at my desk. If I can help them, I will help them. If I can't, then I pass them on to the right person dealing with the right that will deal with their query in the right way, and give them as much help as they possibly can. So we are very personable. We are the only providers that give their claims consultants, you know who your claims consultant will be, and you will have their direct line, and through working hours you can call us. If we're on the telephone, we will ring you back, and we will help if we possibly can. I often give advice via claims, because it saves going through to our technical consultants, because, as I say, there's not much I haven't seen over the nearly 30 years I've been doing this, and we learn something new every day. So we are a personable company. We are working in partnership. Once we've got that contract, you're not just another name, you're not just another number. You are somebody that we actually care about, and that you can pick up the phone and talk to. Okay.
Thank you, Anne. Can I just, I've got a question from one of our members, and maybe for you to answer, John. And I think it's important to mention it now, because this is about everybody understanding how it works. And the question is, does the protection cover VAT on fees? And I know we've had that in the past, haven't we? So it's an interesting one. John, can I ask you to answer?
Yeah. So it would depend. And it might be that I pass this over to Anne, actually, because I remember Anne and I talking about this probably about 6 months ago, because this is a question that comes up once in a blue moon. It depends whether you run a regulated or a non-regulated scheme. And so the difference between those two schemes, running a non-regulated scheme, I touched on this briefly earlier, that's when the premium that you pay to Vantage would be inclusive of insurance premium tax, but you pass that on to your client as a service. And so they pay you VAT on the product, Running a regulated scheme is slightly different, where it's your client who is the insured party in that instance, and so they pay the insurance premium tax as well. But doing it that way, you have to be authorized to sell insurance products as an accountant. So I would say probably, and Anne might correct me on this, but I would say probably about 95% of our clients run non-regulated schemes. Now,
yeah.
Anne, you're going to have to remind me now whether it's the regulated or the non-regulated who get the VAT on the fees.
So as a non-regulated client, that means that you are the insured party, okay, and you are passing it on. It depends on how you issue your invoices, and that is the sole thing. If you issue a separate invoice with the VAT on for the fee protection service, we'll call it that. Unfortunately, it's not tax deductible, but if you do it as part of your ordinary bill, it falls within the service of filling in tax returns, doing accounts, doing payroll, doing special projects. It falls within that, and therefore then that can be deductible because it's the whole thing. And that's basically how it works. Hopefully that's answered your question. But as to whether the fee protection covers VAT, it most certainly does. If we have a VAT inquiry, if it doesn't have to be a dispute. If you have a VAT inquiry, this year we have seen an inordinate amount of anything that's to do with a repayment, okay, is being picked up from an inquiry point of view. And that included going all the way through COVID. So anything from a VAT repayment that includes 4 figures, you can guarantee you are going to get an inquiry. And of course, that takes time to produce the documents that the revenue have asked for to verify that your client can get the £30,000-40,000 repayment, if that's the case, how much it is. So they are covered within the policy, just so you're aware of that.
Thank you, Anne. I've got one another question, and I think it's important to answer these because it's about members understanding it. Is beyond fee protection, what's the scope of the technical support offered by Vantage? Does this technical support come at extra cost?
Right. So no, the answer is it doesn't come at extra cost. Okay. Within the fee protection, so if you take out a policy, it doesn't matter whether it's an all client or a client decide, you have access to your claims consultant for claims work, but you also have access to a technical team behind the scenes that deal with tax and VAT. All our tax and VAT consultants are both either from HMRC and or practice. Most of them have done both. Okay, so they've got a good understanding of how the system works. They understand how the revenue work and also how the how you work in practice. So you've got that. You've also got a technical lines to legal and employment questions, and that's also opened up to your clients, so your clients can do that. We also have another part of the system which is called Quest, which we give you access to. Now that we give you access as the practice to a library of hundreds and hundreds of legal letters, how they work. So if you've got an employment problem or your client has got an employment problem, they can ring up, they can talk to you, and you can say, yeah, well, you need talk to Vantage, so you can get the background, and then they will tell you which letters they need. And as the practice, you can then obtain those letters for your client out of the library, send them to them. That earns you some pennies. Clients aren't allowed to contact the tax and VAT advice lines, and there's a very good reason for that. Obviously, that is your bread and butter. So if you don't know the answer, it's not an issue, because you can ask one of our consultants, and then you can bill that time out. Equally, if there is something that you do not feel happy about dealing with, it may be something that you've not done before, you can call on our consultants to give consultancy advice. I'm not saying that comes for nothing, because sometimes the consultancy, if it's truly not a telephone query, but it is consultancy and they're actually doing something for you, there will be a charge. But what I can say to you is that charge is greatly reduced as to what you would pay if you were somebody that came off the street and said, can we have some advice on, which we do get from our consultancy package. So does that answer the question?
Yes,
fully?
thank you. Yes, thank you, Anne. I think that's right. And I think from our point of view, you know, obviously I've used the consultancy arm of Vantage because, hey, you know, I think we all have to admit we don't know it all. And sometimes I think it doesn't harm to, one, ask and get help from other people, especially from the consultants that's Vantage supply. But also sometimes, you know, we're all busy as well. And some inquiries can, you know, take your time. That means that you're, okay, you may be covered even from a fee point of view, but actually your time is more precious. And therefore you've got to make a business decision about, is my time worth this in learning and dealing with this inquiry, or can I get help outside? And I think that's where the relationship between the fee protection provider, whether it's Vantage or another, can really help practices if you haven't got an in-house tax team or have not got that knowledge.
Absolutely. And while we would 100% from the claims point of view, 100% expect the accountants to deal with their inquiries themselves, believe you me, I have got several that as part of the inquiry, they actually say, we just want a consultant to deal with it. And the beauty of that, of course, is using one of our consultants, our tax consultants or VAT consultants to deal with your inquiry, is that you have no risk of losing that client to a third party. Because we're not in the habit of taking clients. We haven't got clients. We don't deal with clients. We deal with, well, we have clients, but they're the practices. They're not the end user, for want of a better expression. Whereas if you get assistance from, let's say, your colleague down the road, you might be, you might play golf every Saturday morning with them, but at the end of the day, you might get assistance from them. But if the client thinks that that person knows a little bit more than you do, there's every possibility that that client's going to go to leave you and go to a different practice, whereas that's not going to happen with us. If our consultants get involved, it's only to help you and as you say, Ian, make your time more worthwhile, especially if you're a small practitioner. You might only get one claim every 5 years. You know, it's not something that you necessarily specialize in, and there's no harm in asking for help ever. I think we all do that. Yeah. I mean, just to wrap up, because I know that we're coming close to time, but I just want to go through where we are now and what we're going to be seeing. I touched on earlier that we are getting job retention scheme letters. Sorry, just bear with me. I'm having difficulty now, John. John, can you flip the thing for me?
Yeah, where do you want the...
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Recent letter. Thank you. So the recent letter, that this is August of last year, actually. I was a little bit premature. I said it was October we were talking. It was actually August, because this is one of the very first ones we got. The job retention schemes have come in. We have, as I say, under the COVID arm, not all of the scheme providers are actually giving cover for COVID cases, but we took the view that this is exceptional times. So you'll not find anything about COVID in our policy at all. It just doesn't exist, because we weren't planning on moving the policy just for this. But so we have taken the view within the office that these will be covered. Okay, they are qualified, as you can imagine, right from the beginning, just in case the clients have done something wrong, because as good as clients are, a client will ask you something, you will tell them the answer. That doesn't mean to say, as you well know, that they're going to follow your rules and follow your advice. We have had some of these finish where unfortunately we have had to reject the fees because they the sums involved were in the thousands that they've claimed under job retention when they shouldn't have done. We've had two businesses. I've got two examples. We had a client put in a furlough claim for a client of theirs, and they run the payroll as normal. And they got to the end of the first April last year, and they'd put a phone call into the managing director just to make sure that he was okay with it and he was going to sign it off. Between the phone call going out to the managing director, one of the employees sent in her overtime sheet for April to be paid. And our accountant at that point, when he spoke to the managing director, said, "You've got 5 minutes to tell me which way you wish to go with this. Do you want me to put the retention claim in, or would you like to run the payroll as it should be run?" Needless to say, 2 minutes later, the managing director said, "You best run the payroll." And the other story that I've got for you that just shows how clients don't do what they're supposed to do. A limited company with husband and wife and son all working. They're the only people that work for the limited company. They put themselves on the job retention scheme, which they could do. And then the first of that quarter came in after the job retention scheme kicked off, and they'd made more profits than they had the previous quarter. Needless to say, they had to they paid back the job retention, because you can't earn more profits when there's only 3 of you and all 3 of you are on job, on furlough. So there are things out there that do that, that do cause that. But needless to say, we have also paid out an awful lot of money dealing with these job retention schemes where people have done exactly what they're supposed to have done, but because the revenue have to check so many, they've fallen foul of the computer saying it's you, and therefore having to have a look at it. The next letter, John, if you could just roll down one. This is the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. This goes over 2 pages, because if I don't know if guys, if you can see this, and you can most certainly have a copy of it, but have a look at the type of letter, the type of questions that the revenue are asking over this. We've got for each claim made, confirm the information. So they need the tables that were they booked in advance. If you can just go down to page 2, John. They go. That's a whole raft of questions that that the inspector is asking about, and this takes time. It doesn't matter. The client still has to will have to give some help, because obviously it's not something that you as an accountant will know how many tables were booked in advance. But these are the type of questions that are coming out for the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. Unfortunately, we haven't had any updates on this, so I don't know where they're going to next. Literally, what I can say to you is that we know that come 6 months' time, when you started to put your clients' 2021 tax returns in, we are certainly going to be seeing inquiries into the CIS payments and the CIS grants. You will know that on your tax returns there is a separate box for it. We are suggesting, it says optional when you fill it in, we are suggesting that you put them in, because that's what the computer is going to be looking for. And there will be some that people put in as the turnover on nothing in the CIS box, and once you get it, you can guarantee you're going to have an inquiry saying, why haven't you declared the grants, which you may well have done, but again it's time that you don't need to be spending putting in claims, or putting time into looking into into why the CIS grants weren't put in the right box. So it's just things that you need to be aware of, but that doesn't mean to say they wouldn't be covered under the policy. Of course they would, because there will be people out there that have received grants that should have received grants. There will be some people that probably shouldn't have received grants, but as they've had to claim them themselves without talking to you, even if you say to them, well, has it changed your business? And you can say, and they go, oh no, then you'd probably go, well, then you shouldn't be claiming it. But you can guarantee that if they're claiming it because their mate's claiming it, that will be the case. So the claims will be looked at under the policy the same way, and we will help out as much as we possibly can. So that really comes to the end of what I can say. Is there any queries?
I've got no other questions at the moment, Anne. So do you want to just go through making a claim?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So with us in the claims department, we have an online portal. However, there are several people that still like the paper version of the claim form, and then we put it on the portal for them. Claims team, we can give an immediate decision. So as soon as we've got the letter and the claim form, we turn around every claim within 24 hours. Normally 48 if it's over the weekend, but it's normally 24. Normally it's on the same day, so you can get on and deal with it. You can pick up the phone and talk to us, and payments are made on a weekly basis. So once it's gone through, John, can you just flip down to the portal? So this is what our portal looks like. Can I also just say that within the portal, it's like a database, and we all like CPD points, and I know that you get CPD points for today's meeting, but we also have within our portal webinars. So you can sit and eat your sandwiches when you're not doing anything else in your lunch break and watch one of our webinars, and you get your CPD points. And they're all you can get into those. You can get into different articles that our consultants write, anything of any importance that's within that. But the other part of the portal is the claims portal. And as you can see, you can ask for further budgets, you can add correspondence, and you can send us notes. But the most important thing is that I would say that you can certainly pick up the phone and talk to a human being that actually does know what they're talking about. They have seen what you've seen. Even if you've never seen it, there's a fair chance that one of myself or one of my colleagues are going to have seen what you're actually facing, and we can try and to alleviate any worries that you've got. And if you don't understand something, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Anne. I mean, I think one of the things I would say is, and a lot of members probably would have this, is client, they get an inquiry, the client receives the letter, you receive the letter as the accountant, and the client goes, well, it's not a problem because you've done this work already, haven't you? And I think this is going back to, that particular letter relating to the Eat Out scheme, that the information that the revenue sometimes require in their inquiry is very time consuming. And it's over and above, yes, you may have done the work, but you've still got to collate it. You've still got to go back to it. You've still got to extract. And I think this is the peace of mind, I think. I went for many years in practice without fee protection, and then woke up one day and thought, why haven't I got this? And I must admit, I haven't looked back, because one, I have a great relationship with Vantage, and there are other firms out there, but it is about, having that peace of mind. It's about giving best practice as well, because my view is that fee protection is one of those things that really we should offer our clients. Now, of course, as Anne and John said, you could have an all client scheme and decide to pay that for yourself as a peace of mind for yourself. The way we do it, and I'm happy to share this, is that we agree the all client scheme with Vantage, and then decide how much we charge our clients who want to take that up, in the background knowing that we've covered all our clients anyway. So basically, we will charge our limited companies clients, which covers directors, our personal clients, different levels of fees, based on providing that service, as Anne said, within our overall package, and therefore we will charge that service plus VAT. But obviously the insurance that we have with Vantage is with us, and therefore when we make a claim, that fee note that we send in to Anne for approval has no VAT on it, because we're making an insurance claim against, because we are the practice that's covered. And hopefully that explains it a little bit more from our point of view as members. But
it's outside the scope of VAT.
Absolutely, it's outside the scope. But I think, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Coming back to you, Anne and John, you know, how many discussions you've had with accountants in sort of making them understand that, you know, the relevance of fee protection.
Absolutely, it's something which is really it's really interesting from my point of view, seeing the way different practices deal with the fee protection. As you say, you like to manage on an all client scheme. Some people like to do it on a client decide scheme because they don't want that risk of, you know, the very unlikely event that all of their clients say, do you know what, I don't want it, and they're left having to pay for the premium themselves. It is interesting, and there are an awful lot of ways we can set this up. And so if anybody does want to go over the options, there's all sorts of ways that we can make this work for you. Doesn't matter what size of practice you are, how many partners you've got, how many clients you've got. There's no minimum. We can just make it work and make sure you've got the protection you need.
Thank you, John. And did you want to
and equally, I would say that if anybody's got any, because I've been doing this for such a long time, you've got my telephone number. It's on the leaflets. I'm sure that the IFA will quite happily pass it on. If you've got any inquiry that's going and you're struggling, let's face it, we all struggle. Feel free to give me a call. It doesn't matter that it's not going to be covered, but I can give you some guidance if that's the case, because Ian will advise that, you know, we do actually give guidance as claims consultants. It's not a black and white computer says no. If we can try and give some advice and some guidance as to how to deal with an inquiry, we will do that. So if anybody's got any queries, feel free to give me a call. I haven't got a problem with that. And I'm sure the same for John if you're interested in fee protection. Call either of us and we'll get in touch.
And as I said, I'm happy to share these slides. There's more as well, slides which we haven't seen, which talk about marketing that we can help you with. There's all kinds of services that we can offer alongside the insurance, and I'm happy to go over that with anybody. Ian, I'm sure, will share our details. So yes, just give me a shout if you need anything.
Yes, and I think your details are on the website as well as a strategic partner things. And I think one of the last things I'm going to say, really, as a member in practice, is we're also running a business, and I sometimes do not understand sometimes when accountants don't think that way, because it's about protecting ourselves. You know, it is about, and like with the poll about, yes, most people, most clients were happy to pay fees. But it is about having that discussion with clients about that extra time you've got to spend, how much you're going to charge them. And I suppose really that's where it's peace of mind for me in running my practice, but also, and I'm not ashamed of it, that we actually make money out of providing fee protection, because we take in more from clients than what it costs us annually. And that's without even the reimbursement of fees. So I think, you know, we advise our clients every day, don't we? We mention in lots of the webinars now that accountancy is moving into the advisory role. Actually, we need to look at advising ourselves as well. You know, it is about protecting ourselves. It is. We do know where the government's going. We do know what the revenue are doing in looking at claims. And yes, quite rightly, a fraudulent claim would not be covered. You know, if the taxpayer, the client has committed an offence, then the insurance, you know, Vantage is not going to pay that out. And, you know, so we need to be mindful of that as well. But I think, you know, coming back to it's best practice as I see it. I think I might just have another question. Do you mention mind of their clients? So I think the question is payroll bureau. So I think offer a scheme for a payroll bureau client Anne, can you, or John?
Yeah, yes, we do. We've got some clients who, so are you talking about a practice who perhaps only deals with payroll?
I think that's, yes, it is, yes.
Yeah, we do have some schemes on which are just payroll clients. Again, this is something we could look at on an individual basis. We'd have to look at the client base, we'd have to look at the size of the practice, and we deal with it on that basis. But we do have a few clients on who are just payroll clients.
I suppose I assume you covered across the accountancy sector, don't you? Where it's, you know, I suppose if it's just a tax advisor, that may be a difficult one. But would you cover that as well? Or?
Yeah, no. If they're just tax advisors, they don't have to be. As long as they're the registered tax agent for that person, that or that client, that's absolutely fine. We will cover what they deal with. We won't cover third-party costs. So if you've got a limited company that has to have an audit, for argument's sake, the audit part that you don't deal with won't be covered, so the accounts won't be covered. But if you're dealing with all the tax issues and giving the tax advice, and you are the registered tax agent, it's going to be you that's got to answer the questions on, you know, that arise out of a tax inquiry. That would be covered. Equally, if you only do VAT or you only do payroll, our policy is because it can mold itself to whatever element that you deal with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you only have a payroll bureau, if you run effectively a payroll bureau or several, then that's and for clients, and that's what you do, then they would be covered for the payroll element of it, because that's what you do. You'll be the one answering the questions, not anybody else. And
just going back to what I was saying before about how we can tailor the policies to suit the practices. I've got a client who has they run their payroll in a separate limited company, and so they split their clients across the two companies under one umbrella, if you like. And so what we've done there is we've set one of them up on an all client scheme, and then we set another scheme up for a client side for the clients who fall under the payroll scheme. And so we can really tailor these policies and tailor it to suit each practice and make sure the clients get exactly what they need.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. I think hopefully that's. I've got a comment on the chat box. Thank you very much for the webinar. It has been an eye-opener for most of us. And I suppose if that's the case, I think we've done our job, because I think it is about, you know, the inquiries that are going to come and hit our desks going forward, and having the time to do it, but also having the protection of having, you know, people, you know, that we can call upon, but also to cover our fees. And I think that's quite important, really. I think as you rightly say, Ian, it is best practice. And unfortunately, because of how COVID has hit every one of us, it doesn't matter whether we're an accountancy practice or a client of an accountancy practice, we have generally speaking, the money isn't out there. So while in the past you've never had problems getting your pennies from your clients, as they say, you may well do in the future, because they've been hit. So they haven't got the liquidity to you know, to fund inquiries. Unfortunately, the revenue don't see it like that. So I think as best practice moving forward, it's something everybody should be considering, especially for the COVID, if nothing else, for the COVID claims that are going to hit over the next 12, 18, 24 months, maybe even longer. Yes, thanks, Anne. Thanks, John. And I think I'd like to probably end in just, I think I was reading the letter that you had up on screen from the revenue regarding the eat out, and an interesting point that I found reading on that was about the open source that the revenue use, that basically, you know, and I tell my clients this, they know more about you than you know about yourself, and about what you put on social media and what you put on the IFA out there. They're using that all the time, and I think that's quite relevant. And I think, you know, that I think is where inquiries are going to go, and we need to be aware of that. Guys, I'm just conscious we've overrun time anyway. So, John, Anne, thank you very much for your continued support. I know that you will be happy to speak to any member Say if you go to the IFA website, I think the contact details are certainly on there. You know, discussions cost nothing. Have a chat with the guys and see if it can help you. But thank you for attending today. We've had a great show of members. Please again check the website for the next upcoming meetings. Next national branch meeting 12th of May, MTD. Ooh, we're all looking forward to that. And enjoy the rest of your day, and many thanks for attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you.